Pause. Imagine you're digging in the dusty earth somewhere near the ancient city of Baghdad. It's hot. The sun is beating down. You're carefully brushing away centuries of sand and soil, artifacts that haven't seen the light of day for 2,000 years. Suddenly, your brush reveals something unusual. It's a small clay jar, about the size of your hand. It looks ordinary at first, like thousands of other pots from the ancient world. But then you notice something strange sticking out from the top, sealed with a black, tar-like substance. This isn't just any old jar. This is something different. Something that could, just maybe, change how we see the past. This little jar, and a few others like it, started a huge debate. A debate that still buzzes with energy today. Could ancient people, living 2 millennia ago, have known the secrets of electricity? It sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie, doesn't it? The idea that people who rode chariots, people who wrote on clay tablets, might have harnessed electrical power is astonishing. It challenges our whole timeline of scientific discovery. Benjamin Franklin, Alessandro Volta. What if that story is incomplete? What if a tiny spark of that knowledge existed long, long before? The discovery of these jars near Baghdad in the 1930s opened a fascinating can of worms, perhaps a jar of volts. They were found among Parthian-era artifacts, dated roughly 250 BC to 224 AD. Wilhelm Koenig, director of the National Museum of Iraq, examined their strange construction and proposed a radical idea: ancient galvanic cells. Batteries. This suggestion sent ripples through archaeology and science. So, let's get into it. Thinking caps on, safety goggles on, and examine the evidence. Pause. To understand the mystery, we first need to look closely at the object itself. Let's break it down, piece by piece. The outermost part is a small earthenware pot, fired clay about 13 to 14 centimeters tall, yellowish gray, plain, vase-shaped. But what's inside makes people curious. Inside is a copper cylinder, rolled and upright. It doesn't touch the bottom of the jar. It's held by a black asphalt-like plug, bitumen, that seals the opening and holds everything in place. The tight seal suggests protection from air or to prevent spills. Careful construction with a purpose. Now the intriguing part, an iron rod suspended in the center by the same plug. It does not touch the copper, space all around. That separation is vital. That's why experts say, that looks familiar. Let's recap the structure. A clay pot. Inside, a copper cylinder. Inside that, an iron rod. The two metals do not touch. The whole thing sealed with bitumen. If you know basic chemistry or physics, this rings a bell. It looks like a simple electrochemical cell, a battery. It has the necessary components to generate a small electric current. But could it really make electricity? And if so, why? Pause. So, how could this simple-looking jar possibly make electricity? The idea is based on a fundamental principle of chemistry. Take two different metals, iron and copper. Place them in an electrolyte, typically a weak acid. Tiny charged particles, electrons, start to flow from one metal to the other. That flow is electric current. It's the same basic principle that powers the batteries in your remote or flashlight today, just on a much smaller scale. The claim is that the Parthians intentionally built these jars to be batteries. Proponents suggest adding vinegar from winemaking, or lemon or grape juice, into the jar to act as the electrolyte. The reaction would begin producing a small but steady voltage, enough to gently power something minimal. But what would they use it for? Not light bulbs or smartphones? The leading theory is electroplating, using current to apply a thin layer of one metal onto another, making silver look like gold. Imagine a secret workshop in Ctesiphon, a master goldsmith linking a series of jars to coat a silver ring in shimmering gold. It's a compelling story. Ancient artisans as sophisticated technicians stumbling upon a fundamental force of nature. Yeah, it's quite fascinating. Pause. Section 4. The case for evidence supporting the battery theory. What makes people believe this? First, the object's design. Two different metals, separated inside a container, a textbook galvanic cell. Supporters argue it's too similar to be coincidence. Why else suspend an iron rod inside a copper cylinder without touching? That non-obvious design suggests function. Second, practical experiments. Modern researchers and curious experimenters build replicas, and they work. Clay pots, copper cylinders, iron rods, add vinegar or lemon juice, and you get measurable voltage, typically about half a volt to 1 volt. Less than a single AA, but definitely electricity. Proponents say this proves the concept. Third, artifacts showing exceptionally thin, uniform layers of gold and silver. Some think they hint at electroplating. Other methods exist: mercury, amalgam gilding, hammered gold leaf. But supporters point to smoothness as a clue. A small current would be perfect for delicate, small-scale plating, cheap trinkets looking like treasures. Finally, don't underestimate ancient ingenuity. They advanced astronomy, mathematics, chemistry, and alchemy. Could they have stumbled on electricity by experiment? Maybe it was seen as magic or a divine secret, used by a few priests or artisans. If it served special purposes, that might explain why it wasn't widespread. Section 5. The case against reasons for skepticism. Now, let's flip the coin. The biggest argument is silence. No Parthian texts or neighboring cultures' texts mention anything like electricity. We have records of laws, history, myths, trade, but not a single word about using jars to make power. Another problem? Context. The jars weren't found in metalworking shops surrounded by electroplated jewelry or wires. Similar vessels look like scroll containers, papyrus or parchment wrapped on an iron rod, inside a copper cylinder, sealed in clay to guard against moisture. In that view, the metals protect, they don't power. Alleged electro-gilded items are debatable. Ancient metallurgy shows similar results via non-electrical methods like fire gilding. There's no object that uniquely requires electricity. Without it, the need for a battery vanishes. Practical issues: the asphalt seal is a complete plug, no holes for wires. You'd have to break it each time. Original iron rods were heavily corroded and wouldn't last in acid. A battery that dies in minutes isn't very useful. These hurdles make the battery theory far less plausible in practice. Pause. Section 6. Putting it to the test. Simple experiments and replicas. How do we test the idea? Experimental archaeology. People have tried it. Students, TV shows, serious labs. Build a replica with period materials. Pot, copper sheet, iron rod, and seal with bitumen or asphalt. Add vinegar or lemon juice. Connect a voltmeter. Watch the reading. Success. Replicas consistently produce around half a volt. The design can produce electricity. The principle is sound. But working now doesn't prove ancient use. Replicas use clean metals. Originals were corroded. Stronger modern acids help results. Electroplating likely needs many jars wired in series, a battery pack. Others suggest medical tingling or theatrical shocks via hidden contacts. No external wires needed. An intriguing possibility, you know. Pause. Section 7. The verdict. Myth busted or history rewritten. The clues, the claims, the counterclaims. Where do we land? Most mainstream historians conclude the ancient battery idea is incredibly cool, but very likely incorrect. The Baghdad Battery was probably not a battery. We're projecting modern knowledge. The lack of supporting evidence is significant. No ancient texts, no diagrams, no connectors, no artifacts that truly required electroplating. Protective scroll containers explain the construction without inventing lost tech and require the fewest assumptions. Replica electricity is real, but likely an accidental property, not intent. A great thought experiment reminding us to test claims. Verdict: myth busted, for now. What do you think? Battery, scroll jar, or something else? Share your view in the comments, subscribe for more mind-bending history, and send this to a friend who loves a good mystery.